The Wests Tigers podcast is brought to you by the Wests Tigers Podcast Forum. Join the conversation today at weststigerspodcast.com.au.
It's the West Tigers podcast, episode 484. We're back, and look who's back, Declan McCutcheon. Awesome to have you back, mate. Welcome back.
Thank you, Nick. You try and escape, but then they pull you back in. So
Exactly, yeah. Thought you might have gone into a black hole for a little bit there, but I just, before you say your next thing there, I just wanted to ask you, a little birdie actually told me that Joel kind of made me like a bit of a part-time host. And the rumor is that you actually left the podcast group because you'd been removed from that role and you decided to walk away. Is that correct?
Look, I can neither confirm nor deny, but I just think that if I want a certain position on the pod, then I should be entitled to that. And if I don't get my way, then, I'm not going to turn up. So, yeah, maybe it is true. So
yeah, I've been around for a lot longer than I. So anyway, for now, you're playing lock. So if you're not happy with that, then you'll have to find another club.
Didn't know that was an option. Can we take that option?
Just making things up as we go. Hello, Josh. How are you, man? I know you've been sick, and so has the family. You well?
Yeah, mate. Recovering. Getting there. It's been a hard week, both as a Tiger supporter and from an illness point of view. But here tonight. Wouldn't say full of energy, but I'm here. So yeah, let's do it.
It's good to see you back. But isn't it strange? Like you're saying, you've had a crook week, obviously health-wise, as has your whole family. So I'd imagine what the household has been like, pretty dire straits. And then you round it off with a West Tigers performance like what we got yesterday. And I know I was kind of banging on, my birthday was on Wednesday. I was hoping that, we had a loss last week. The Tigers lost last week. And I thought, maybe I'll get a second chance against the Raiders. Maybe they'll give me something to be happy about. But no, it didn't happen. So miserable.
The only thing I'm always excited about, Nick, is that my birthday's in December, so I never have the risk of a Tigers game. As I wouldn't if it was in September or October, really. And anywhere after September is Tigers free. So once again, locked in.
Can you actually? I know you can go to. Is it called Deed Poll where you can actually change your name? Is there a way to change your birthday? I'd like to move mine right out of rugby league season. Yeah. Anyway, that might not be possible. But Declan, as I said, mate, great to have you back. But I guess kicking off, I just want to say I feel like the West Tigers have done it again. We've debuted another young gun, and I'll call him a young gun. And I know I've talked a bit over the last few months that I've been watching all of the highlights packages of Cup and bits of Cup games where possible. But Javon Andrews should have had a fantastic week leading up to his debut. And the club's gone and put in a performance like what we had yesterday, which I can only call a capitulation.
Yeah, look, I feel like when you're debuting a half towards the end of the season, it's probably because things might not necessarily have went right up to that point. And spare thought for Andrews. I thought he played well considering. I don't really think that he got caught out defensively a few times individually, but that's to be expected from someone who's debuting in their first NRL great game. And then also we're on the back foot the entire time. I thought his general kicking was pretty good. I thought he linked up pretty well with his outside backs, brought Bulla into the game a little bit better than he had previously been, which I thought was good. So yeah, a lot to like. But yeah, it's just we just can't escape it. It just seems like we're just cursed to go from one kind of saga, and then when that settles down, we find another one that's just as bad, or if not worse. So I don't know. It's just something about us. I don't really see any other NRL clubs that just cause or are subject to these kind of incidents on and off the field. But yeah, I suppose it's something to talk about on the pod, though. For if you're looking at the bright side.
There's always something to talk about. West Tigers are always in the news. I was actually having a chat to a mate today saying that West Tigers are a sponsor's dream, whether you're winning games or not winning games, which is usually how it works. We're always in the news. And these sort of headlines are just putting our jerseys and club all over the media, front page news all the time or back page. And Josh, it's not the way that we want to do it, right? Like I'd rather have positive stuff to talk about, which is, I guess, where the first 7, 8 weeks of the year this year were so different and enjoyable and something we haven't done for a very long time. And for it to turn the way it's gone, I'm going to get to the one words, but diabolical, that could be a good word as well.
It was a lovely bright spot, probably bright spot of the year, but probably bright spot of the decade to have those 7 or 8 weeks where we played really well. And I think the previous time before that was probably that first 7 or 8 weeks with Ivan when we had that good run to start that season. And in similar vein, probably even worse this time, it's kind of fallen off a cliff. I think diabolical's a good description. As you said, we're always in the news, and they say any news, any publicity is good publicity. I think the Tigers have taken that a little too much to heart over this season and every season, sadly.
Yeah, I agree too. So let's start with the one words. Declan, I'll come to you first. Before you go, I'm just going to say my word is exhausted. Now, I've had a big weekend. I did party last night. However, I was up at 6:15 this morning to coach my son's football team. Not a pleasant way to start a Sunday after a big night last night for my 50th celebrations. But anyway, we did it. We got through the day. But more exhausted just the way that this year's gone. I can actually think this is probably going to go down as one of our worst in history. Even though it looks like we're not going to come last, I just feel that after the start to the year that we had, and all the hopes and dreams that we all had, and the way the media was talking us up, that it was going to be the year that we made finals. And for the way that it turned out, and it's going, like I said last pod, it's going straight down the toilet bowl. So my word is exhausted. I cannot wait for the off season. But what about you? What's your one word?
Well, for that Canberra game, I'm going to say weak underbelly, because I think that was probably maybe the worst collective performance I've seen from 3 starting middles, like that I can remember. To be honest, like I think that May, Poley, and Twal were just like off it from the word go, and we honestly looked better with like the bench rotation coming on, even though it didn't make much of a difference. But yeah, I just thought that they just were blown off the park by like the Raiders forwards who aren't that like top tier anymore, which is really disappointing. Like it's not like they're like in their prime. So yeah, and then like just this season overall, yeah, I think exhausting, want it to be over. Keen for the off season, like all those kind of words. I think it's because like throughout the last 2 seasons, we've kind of all agreed like yes, it's kind of slow, steady, but we are making like some progress. And like the Galvin thing was like pretty huge last season, but I think we all kind of agreed that we were probably like came out okay from it, if not like pretty good. So everyone was kind of happy about this. But this is kind of the first time in like Benji's career where it's not at the start, but it looks like we're going to have to make some like tough decisions in terms of like what to do next, because this is like a pretty big like bumper in the road with a few guys who like, and everyone's kind of locked in like contract wise as well in terms of the squad. So I think that kind of adds as well to the kind of, oh no, where do we go from here? Because it's not like we would have like salary cap money like the Dragons to be able to say, oh, we can just add like 6 recruits and that'll make a difference. I think we kind of have to work to some degree with what we have at the moment. But then again, like maybe with like the stuff we're going to talk about with a few halves leaving, maybe that will kind of open things up for us to, with a little bit of flexibility. So we'll have to see.
So before I throw to you, Josh, Declan, you mentioned the word progress. Do you still think that we're making progress? Because it feels like we make some small steps forward and then we just go straight backwards down the slippery dip, back into the mud at the bottom. I just feel like we're not even treading water. I think we're reverting to mediocrity again.
Yeah, it's a really tough question. I honestly don't have like a straightforward answer. Like on one hand, I think that we still have like a young nucleus of like kind of like good players, some of whom are injured, some of whom aren't playing that well. So on one hand, from like a squad perspective, I think that we are making kind of slow and incremental like improvements. But then like when you look at the games like recently, like it just looks like they're a million miles off it, which is so confusing because at the start of the year, it was like a lot of the same players, but playing like a lot better. So I don't know. It's just something that like only like the coaching staff and only like the people internally know exactly what happened. But yeah, probably if I was to give you like a yes or no answer, I would say that we haven't really made any progress from like the last year when we were kind of winning some games. That like probably we haven't taken that step, which is disappointing.
So, Josh, I'm going to ask you for your one word, but I'm just thinking, right, when listening to Declan about our journey this year and thinking about Benji. So, the start of the year, all of the players were in the media, fronting up to media press conferences and questions saying how much they love playing for Benji and how united the group is and how much fun they're having. And then the latest headlines coming out of the Doueihi saga, which we'll get to, and the slide that we've gone on the last 6, 8, 12 weeks. Now there's talk about, more talk about Benji and whether he's right for the job and does he need support around him. And there's rumors in the press about that today as well. So I guess it comes with the territory, right? You win games, everyone's happy. You lose games, the media jumps on your back as everyone else does. But just along those lines and the Raiders game, so we lost 56-10. The Magpies, I had a look today, they lost 32-4. So yesterday wasn't a good day, 88-14 combined score. What was your one word for that Raiders performance yesterday?
Nick, my one word was embarrassment. I thought about a few. I thought about, horrible and diabolical, I think were good, but embarrassment. It wasn't just that. It was that as fans, the team are an embarrassment to follow. Like people pity us when you go in and tell them you're a Tiger supporter. When I go into work tomorrow, it's no longer, people having a laugh. They actually just are pitying the fact that I'm a Tigers supporter and the fact that I'm on a Tigers podcast. They're like, oh, poor guy. And so it's an embarrassment. And the performance of some of those players and some of the senior players, or even, kind of bigger name players yesterday. Sunia Taruva, an embarrassment. Jerome Luai, an embarrassment. Terrell May, an embarrassment. I thought those three in particular were an embarrassment to the jersey and to the club. And I think the whole performance across the board that we've seen yesterday, but also across the last, probably. And there's been excuses earlier in the season, and I've made them. I've been really positive about it, so I won't say the whole year, but I think the last few weeks, in the last couple of weeks especially, has been an absolute embarrassment to the club. And you talked about, this year will go down as could go down as our worst year. The embarrassment is it's got a lot of competition. Like, yes, this year we may have sacked our board, lost the best CEO in the game, had our best player leave twice, now had our most informed player leave. But that doesn't necessarily put it as the worst. Like for any other club, that this year would be the worst year they'd had. Like most other clubs would be the worst year they've had. It's got a lot of competition at the Tigers. Like, it's the Jason Taylor years, the Mick Potter years. There's the Tales from Tiger Town years. There's even the three, and without saying then, the three wooden spoons in a row. Like, it takes a lot to be the Tigers' worst year because we have horrible years over and over again, and it's an embarrassment. So my one word is embarrassment.
Okay. That's, like you said, there's a lot of words that can fit the description quite well. So let's go through the words that come up on the forum. So Mac Tiger, his one word was Javon, and he said he'll be a target for plenty of other clubs, which is true. And I guess that's going to be the case for any good young junior coming up through any club. I guess we do seem to notice it more following our club that, it's impossible to hold on to all of them, but the ones that stand out do tend to get a lot of attention. And unfortunately, I think for us with Javon is, and maybe the same with Latu, we're probably going to end up paying overs to keep them. I don't know if you boys have any thoughts on that. And I know we've only seen Javon once, right? So yesterday was obviously his debut, and I thought he looked quite good in a well-beaten team. I think you said, Declan, that he seemed to work well with both sides work well with his halves and work well with his combinations inside and outside in a turbulent week with some pretty rough, preparation. But I think he showed a lot of capability in being a good half going forward. Any of you guys want to comment on that one?
Yeah, I think that it's it's really tough because obviously we're all kind of sad at the moment and kind of defeated, but I feel like it's probably such an interesting point because I feel like this is in some ways like the kind of most important part. Like, because it's really easy to say when like Shane Richardson came in and then when Benji was like appointed as the coach, okay, like this is the plan. We're not going to diverge from the plan. Like we know what we want to do. We know where we want to get to. And like at the start, everyone's just like, well, okay, like that, like because it's new, everyone's on board. But I feel like times like this is like kind of like, okay, this is where we've kind of made a mistake in the past, where we have made changes that haven't fixed anything. And I'm not saying that like to sack or to not sack a coach or to like get rid of someone, but it's just I feel like this is the kind of point where we kind of have to, as a fan base, try and like be as positive as possible, if that makes sense. And I know it's tough because like I've been doing this pod for a very long time, and I don't think it's our worst season. I think I always remember that time where Brent Naden flipped Jake Trbojevic the week after Madge got sacked at Campbelltown, and we just got flogged by a pretty average Manly Sea Eagles team. So that will be always the low point for me. But yeah, it's just I feel like with like decisions like Javon Andrews and Latu, just to like come to your point, we just have to like stay positive and just hope that we have these pieces that will get us to where we want to go. Like next season, like at some point next season is going to be better because, like if we kind of worry about how, like any good player like Andrews, like he plays one good game and he's going to get poached. I feel like that's kind of the Tigers PTSD that's going to like keep the cycle going. So I don't really know what I'm trying to say, but yeah, that was just my reaction to that.
I think it's really interesting, and I thought he played well. Like for a kid in his first game, given all the circumstances, everything, I thought he kicked well. I thought he played well, and I think he's been amazingly impressive in New South Wales Cup. I think Latu has lots of talent, but I also go, what am I looking at other clubs that are looking at starting next season with a 19-year-old who's played a couple of games and a 20-year-old or 21-year-old who's played a few games off the bench as their starting halves with really. Jock Madden as our only backup. Like that is not what a professional organization do. What they do is Javon comes in and plays a couple of games at the end of this season, and then maybe next season he plays 5 or 6 off the bench or a couple of starting games and kind of builds that up. What we see is that we'll be looking like going into the season with 2 kids who have not played really any NRL in the halves as our starting halves, and I think they're both really talented. I think they've both got ability, but you're on a hiding to nothing when you're doing that to young guys. And and I think so. Well, I think they both have a lot of talent. And I actually think like Javon's an interesting one. He was signed for the Tigers for many years as a junior coming through from Queensland, hurt himself, was off contract a couple of years. Once he got back on the field, came back to us. I feel like this is a kid who probably grew up loving the Tigers. Like I feel like this might be his club. So actually I think, longer term, could he stay with us? Maybe, but then, as we've seen over the last few years, we haven't managed to have a half last more than a year without something going wrong, whether Galvin or Doueihi or Luai or, all of them. So I have lots of hope in both, but how long does it last is a different question.
Yeah, I think we'll have to sign someone for sure. Like, I don't think we can really go in with Madden, Andrews, and like Latu is like the only like halves for next season. And like I do really feel bad for Benji. Like he's really had to wear like a lot these past 2 seasons. Like a lot of it kind of not inflicted by the club. Some of it with the Luai stuff, a little bit self-inflicted. But again, a lot of it out of our control. We can debate. I'm probably going to get to the Doueihi stuff later. But I think we need to sign at least depth, or someone might become available. Like I think we probably all agree that it's unlikely that Doueihi's going to play again for the Tigers, but I think the kind of way he leaves is kind of up for negotiation and debate in terms of like if we let him walk for nothing, if we hold him till we get like an exchange or like some sort of compensation. So yeah, I think all that's probably going to factor into signing another half, hopefully before the start of next season or early rounds, because I don't like teams like the Raiders. Like you look at them and they've got like quite young halves. I know that Strange played Origin this year, but going into the season he hadn't. But they kind of surround them like with like consistent, solid veterans and which is a little bit different to our team at the moment, which is a little bit more up and down. So yeah, it's a real kind of tricky situation at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, and even the Raiders have, they had Fogarty last year and were kind of, and they were first on the ladder at the end of the season, and they've gone with two young halves and they've fallen down to bottom four. We're going from bottom four and then going to two young halves, so it's not a great sign. Look, my personal view is I actually think I actually want Doueihi to stay. I think they've got to work it out. That's like what an adult that's what adults do, and they sit in a room and they work it out and they try and sort this out. They know there's obviously been quite a lot happen, and there's probably lots behind the scenes happen. But Doueihi's a good player. He's a loyal Tiger. He's been with the club for longer than I think anyone at the club now from a playing perspective. Like grow up and sort it out, both of them, like all of them. Not Doueihi in particular, not Benji in particular. Like be adults. You've signed a contract till 2029. The club needs to sort some shit out because, while he might not have gone about it the right way, Doueihi's opinion that, things aren't right. Well, I think that's been proved over and over the last little while that he's correct, that this club is a bit of a, the shit isn't right. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes, Declan.
But yeah, Josh, sorry, I just find it so funny how like the very fact that got out to the media about Doueihi not thinking that things are right is like it's part of the problem. Like it's like he's leaking to the media from within the playing group that like there's problems at the club, but like he as like a senior player shouldn't be leaking to the media. And like the fact that like it's leaked immediately from the very start just shows me he's actually not a loyal Tiger. He's like doing it for like PR to cover himself because he knows he doesn't want to go back there anymore. And yes, I've been someone like over the years, if you listen to the podcast, I've actually ran a lot of cover for Adam Doueihi, even in the past when it was that situation with the you pick me at 6 or I play reserve grade at 6. I was quite an adamant defender. I always thought that he was a little bit like overly passionate, had his heart in the right spot. But kind of expressed it like the wrong way sometimes. But I think with this situation, I've been proven wrong. Like I think it's really come back to bite us. The point where we needed him the most, where we still had a technical like chance to play finals. The fact that I know that it was unlikely, but like
we were not playing finals.
But like you say that, but there's still a chance. Like how can you say you can't really like laugh like that when you've got like fans who've paid like memberships for the whole season. Like you go to the very
I'm just saying, yeah, look, absolutely, but I'm just saying, I think we were all really clear that with or without him and with or without this week's things, the Tigers weren't making the finals. Like I don't think, but
you can't have that mentality as a player.
No, agreed. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And like just that when we needed him the most, he decided to make a decision for himself, pack bags, leaked to the media that afternoon. Like that just says everything that I need to know about him as an individual player. And I honestly hope I never see him in a Tigers jersey again, honestly.
It was a horrible look, and we will talk about Doueihi in a second. And I wonder how much of that leak was coming from his manager rather than Adam.
I'm going to say a lot of it.
Whether we find out the truth or not, I don't know. But anyway, Snake's one word is shredder. Which is Joel's favourite word, and he said on Monday it's AD's contract, so that's only tomorrow, and by the time most people listen to this, it may have already happened, so we'll find out in the next probably 12 to 18 hours what happened with AD. LFC Tiger had said a few things, but actually said I don't have any words and talked about the lack of pride and professionalism, which I think we can all agree with. Plunder Monkeys, one word was standards. We've heard a lot about them, easy to say, hard to uphold. And we did see a bit of that yesterday at Canberra as well, in the nation's capital. Teddy S, one word, didn't really give a one word, but I pulled one out of his post. It's predictable. And I'd predicted a 60-point loss, and it wasn't quite a 60-point loss. I know, Josh, at one point you were hoping for close to a 60.
I did have the Raiders 51 plus, Nick, so I was very excited when they were just in those last couple of minutes. If we're going to lose, I could have taken the 34-1 that I'd had some money on for 51 plus. So yes.
And you know what? In our group chat, I know I was kind of laughing along with that, and I can see that side of it. That I was expecting a heavy loss, so why not put some money down just in case? You never know. I know a few of us, I think Jordan especially, and maybe Declan was probably getting a bit fired up that Josh had backed so heavily against our club. Not you. Okay, so Jordan definitely was. But look, obviously we were hoping to win the game and be competitive at least, but realistically, maybe we're just a bit of a realist, Josh. Maybe it's
I was fairly accurate. I was only one kind of dodgy video ref decision off being perfect. It was actually inspired by your 50th birthday, Nick. I thought, 51 plus for your now that you're moving into the 50 plus. So
Thanks, Josh. You went too far away from a good payday, so unlucky. NatMax78's word was light. The light I saw at the end of the tunnel has now been extinguished. The only thing I can say in NatMax78 is if you look a little bit further down the tunnel, there's light in September, I think the second week of September when we're no longer playing. So if you focus on the end of season light, we're not too far away. Tiger Town SFS, one word was reft. They mentioned a fair bit about the club being allocated junior refs to our games or games that don't really matter so much. I know, I think the referee's name was Jared Cole. Hadn't seen him before. There were a few interesting decisions. I know that we tried to challenge a ball that looked like it was raked out of, was that Tavana's grip?
Tupo.
Yeah, Tupu's grip, and it was called a knock on. I actually thought that looked like a raking motion. I don't know about you boys, but I thought we were hard done by that one.
Yeah, I don't know. If it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's a
Yeah.
duck. And he clearly like raked at the ball. I just don't know why we make these things so much more technical, how you have to add the level of intent, but you don't know what Savage's intent is.
Right.
You can't read his mind. It's so stupid. You make it so much more complicated.
Yeah.
If he looks like he's went in a raking motion, then it's a rake. And I don't know, it's so dumb. But I think the thing, if you lose by like 50 plus points,
It
I don't
doesn't
think
matter.
you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really
Yeah.
think you can blame the referee. Like especially that first half, like it felt that like because we just needed everything to go our way to even kind of stay in the game. That's probably why we're kind of riding these referee decisions
Yeah.
harder. But at the start of the year, like we knew that we were good enough to kind of defend things when it didn't go our way. So yeah, it is what it is.
And the reason Tupou was struggling with that ball and Savage was on him was that Jerome had just thrown a ball over the top of,
Yeah.
straight over the heads of two outside backs that was bouncing on the ground near the sideline. So if you don't do the stupid stuff to begin with, you don't necessarily put yourselves in those positions. But I agree, Declan, some of the rulings in all games this season, not just ours, but have been ridiculous and overthought. Just, go with your first reaction, and it's generally fairly obvious that was stripped. So yeah.
And just on that Jerome pass too, I've been a big Jerome supporter, but that was a poor pass. He did another poor pass. It may have been to Tupu again, where it almost hit him in the shins.
On the fifth tackle.
On the fifth tackle, yeah. And we were struggling to get out of a half again, which I was whinging about down the pub when I was watching the game. He also kicked on the first or the second tackle when we were right on their line and had a good chance to put, a whole set of pressure on the Raiders' defence, and that didn't go our way. I thought that was quite poor. So I know when your team's struggling, players like Romy are going to try to do what they can to create opportunities, but I think his game management was a little bit poor yesterday. And I actually walked away from that game thinking, you know what, I probably wouldn't be too unhappy if that was going to be the last time I saw Romy playing the halves this season for us. I thought maybe it's time that we reshuffle a bit and look towards the future.
He's done for me.
Yeah, you could probably put him on the bench and bring him on if needed. And I know he did say that he'd be happy to step down if required, if that was best for the team. But I guess with the Doueihi stuff happening now, we'll probably see Romy for the rest of the year, but we'll wait and see how that plays out. Mercy Rule's word was spiritless. So again, I had to pick this one out of his post. At the end of his post, he did say, "We, the fans, deserve better than this crap," and I completely agree. We've been through the ringers for the last 15 years, and it's very, very difficult to get up every week, and especially this time of the season when you're getting absolutely pumped, and put yourselves through it. And I've actually got a friend of mine who's a manager of of my son's team and her sons as well, Dundas Shamrocks. So big shout out to Mel. She actually is a massive diehard, and I said to her, "Did you go down to Canberra yesterday and watch the game?" She said, "Would you believe I actually put the family in the car and we went for a drive and did something else when the game was on because she couldn't bring herself to watch it anymore." And I'm the same. When I was watching the game down the pub with my mate pre-birthday celebrations yesterday, My mate's a Bulldogs fan. I actually said to him, I hope my son Isaac, who's my diehard Tiger, isn't watching. I'd rather him tucked in his room gaming, because I don't want him sitting through these annihilations, because it's not good for your mental state, especially when you're a young kid. So, let alone a 50-year-old man or mid-40s or whatever you might be, Josh. But it's a tough time as a Tiger, as we all know. Tigersman's word is actually a letter. The letter S stands for Stewart, Sanders, Savage, Strange, Speed, not us, soft defense, suspect, referee calls, and sick of losing. Pretty hard to disagree with any of those. I thought all of those Raiders players with the name starting with S made us look very poor. And someone that you may know, Joel. I think that might be Joel Helms. His word was constant. This is a bit cryptic. He said, what is the constant we've had for 16 failed seasons? Declan, do you want to have a crack at this, apart from missing finals? What would Joel be talking about?
A lack of physicality.
Very likely.
The home and Barnes group.
Yeah.
One of those two. I'd like to lock those in.
Yep. It could be on the money. Josh, any idea?
I think it's. I think two things. One is the ownership. Is the Holman Barnes group have been in charge for all 16 years of failure, and we saw a little bit of improvement when they weren't last year, and now we've kind of headed back down the rabbit hole. The other thing I think a constant is as we kind of talked about, the constant controversy and mess and the constant falling off as the season progresses. Like, we have started a few seasons over the years well, and they nosedive as the season goes on. So I imagine that's Joel's constant. I can't imagine how Joel has done this every week since 2018. So that's probably his constant as well.
Well, that's why Joel doesn't have any hair. That's why he's done it for the last.
He started off with a mullet and full head of hair.
Joel, you should grow that mullet back and just flick it over the top, mate. Be a good look. I was trying to think about the 16 years of failure and what Joel's constant could be, and my mind's not as creative as you guys. But how many true halfbacks have we had in those 16 years? We've had a lot of number sixes. We've had a lot of 5'8".
That opens up a can of worms, I think, with the whole Luke Brooks thing, because he played a lot during those 16 seasons. So it depends if you want to count him as a 7 or a 6.
Yeah.
But he was playing 6, so that's the combination.
He was playing 6 and then went to Para and put on a 7 jersey. But anyway, maybe that's a discussion for another day, but we might as well get into the Adam Doueihi stuff. So obviously that came out a few days ago. Really, really poor timing. Like I alluded to at the start of the pod, especially with Javon Andrews making his debut. I thought that was absolutely a horrible situation for young Javon. I saw a clip with his parents presenting him with his jersey at Concord, which is obviously a huge moment. I can only imagine, Declan, what would have been going through Javon's minds, not when he was getting the jersey, but leading up when the Doueihi blow up happened. I think it was Thursday morning, and he sensationally walked out. The media reported that he was doing laps in his Range Rover or whatever he's got, around the car park after he had a blow up with Benji. So it must have been a bit of a spectacle. But imagine being 19 years old, being picked by Benji to play number 7 in your first NRL game, and one of the club's leaders goes and behaves like that at training. I mean, how do you think you'd handle that?
Yeah, look, I think the thing about, I think it was good that he got named at 7 at the start of the week. So he had the whole week to kind of, get mentally prepared. I think that professional athletes are quite good at focusing on the task at hand. And although there's lots of media pressure that we as fans consume, it might not necessarily be like that with players. We have to remember as well that Javon Andrews was close to being a quadriplegic as well, with when he was coming up through junior footy. So I can only imagine the mental toughness it would come to just come back to a normal standard of life, let alone getting back into contact sport. That is just incredible mental toughness. So, but then, he would have obviously done reps with Doueihi throughout the entire preseason. They would have had halves meetings, playmaker meetings, spine meetings. I'm sure Doueihi would have talked him through stuff. So it would be really awkward, and you would feel a little bit bad because you've contributed. You feel like you might have contributed to something that's impacted the entire team. But like he can only control his actions, and yeah.
So, Josh, I don't know if you've got, or I'm sure you do have thoughts on Adam and the whole way that it's impacted the week. Not just with Javon, but the whole playing group. But one quote that I wanted to actually read out. So I've mentioned him before. There's a social media guy, Ryan on the sideline. He's a journo, but he puts out some good stuff. He actually shared a quote today from Adam Doueihi in August 2025, so almost a year ago. I can't remember what game he was referring to. It's a couple of short paragraphs, but the quote from Doueihi almost a year ago was, I sort of got switched there in regards to playing lock to chase some points last week. And yeah, after the game, felt really comfortable and solid with my defense and attack there. It's probably more for the coach having that versatility factor about myself, being able to throw me in pretty much any position on the park. So that was a year ago. Then 4 weeks later, sorry, that was in July 2025. 4 weeks later, he says, I like being involved in the middle of the field, whether that's in the halves or that ball playing lock position. I feel as though that really suits my strengths where I could help with this young team, just dictating in the middle and being that loud voice. So where has that Adam Doueihi gone 12 months later when he apparently says to Benji, who's told him he's going to be playing lock or off the bench coming at lock, if I'm not playing in the halves, you put me in New South Wales Cup and play for the Magpies. What's happened in the last 12 months?
Well, I would say, and I'm going to take the Adam Doueihi hat here tonight. I would say what the difference is that Adam's, a guy who's loved this club and done a lot for the club, and we can debate these things, but I'm taking the Adam view. Who's come into this season and been told he's going to be the man, he's going to be the halfback. That's kind of his job for the year. He's gone to fight it at the judiciary, which I'll note that Benji didn't turn up for.
Yep.
I've heard a couple of other first grade coaches say they'd never missed a judiciary hearing, but
Yep.
Benji didn't turn up. He's won at that judiciary hearing. He's come in on the Thursday, 2 days before the game after winning the judiciary hearing, being halfback all year. Comes in and the coach is like, yeah, I haven't told you all week, but what we're going to do is we're going to, despite the fact you're playing with a busted shoulder, despite the fact you've come back for us from that injury and are still clearly playing busted, we're going to put you in the middle at lock for 60 minutes on the weekend to make a heap of tackles and bust yourself. And we're going to leave in the half. We're going to pick two left side halves. We're going to put the kid who normally plays on the left on the right. Because we're going to keep our star player who's left the club twice this year already, who's smashed up our culture, who's moving to PNG, has ruined the environment, put a heap of blokes offside. Yeah, we're going to keep Jerome because he's been in such horrible form, but I think this week he's going to come back. That sound good, Adam? I mean, I haven't given your thoughts any consideration, Benji says, but you'll be fine. Go in and do it. And if I'm Adam, I'm like, you know what? Like you talked about standards. The standards have clearly been low for the last couple of months. You've done nothing about it. The guys who are dropping the standards, some of them out there, they're still getting picked every week. They're still getting all this love. You're loving the guy who's leaving. And me, I've signed up, I was straight in there and signed up for 4 years with Jerome leaving. You said I'm the man. I'm playing halfback. I play on the right side. Javon plays on the left. It makes perfect sense to have them on either side. And yet you've gone and dropped me and kept Jerome. Well, you know what? My head's not in it this week. And instead of going out there and embarrassing the jersey and playing crap and just going out there when I'm not in the mental headspace, because Benji always talks about how we're a family and we need to be in the right and we need to look after each other. Well, you know what? I'm going to do the right thing by the jersey. I'm not going to go out there and play a horrible game where I'm not in the headspace. I'm going to look after my mental health, which we talk about a lot, and we talked about on the podcast for fans last week. I'm going to look after that, and I'm going to take the weekend off. And yeah, I'm going to go and tell my manager, and unfortunately, he's then gone and leaked it all. But probably to be expected because he's a bit of a prick. So look, am I perfect as Adam? No, but did the club bring them on themselves? Did Benji know that Adam's a fiery character and perhaps leaving it till Thursday after he'd already gone to judiciary was a last minute poor idea? And perhaps he could have had this conversation about 15, leading in over weeks and things and prepared for this. So I think Benji handled it shit. I think Adam didn't handle it great, but I can kind of understand why.
So Declan, you can reply. Away you go.
No, I think that Josh like from Adam Doueihi's point of view, make some salient points about like why Adam would feel the way he does. Like, he's obviously had like this is kind of the first time in his career where he's had that like 7 jersey or like that like constant half possession locked up like short term. And then, he sees Javon Andrews, this young player, kind of like getting a shot at his expense coming off the bench. So, and then you've also got the club's obviously trying to sign Latu up with Samuela up long term. So he might be trying to see the tea leaves. And he's just like, well, I've actually played well all season. I don't think this is fair. So I don't think anyone can begrudge Adam for like kind of being annoyed at the situation. But I think this is where I really have a problem with the whole situation. And I think something that's gotten lost in this whole scenario incident is that who is Adam Doueihi think he is? Like, what has he achieved in this game? Nothing. That's like he's a much better player than me. I honestly wouldn't be fit to play like on the same field as him. But he's carrying on like he's Nathan Cleary or like James Tedesco. Like he's won Origins. Like he's played for Australia, but he's done absolutely none of it. I mean, like when he made that decision to walk off the field, we're on a 5-game losing streak. There was a stat that the more Adam Doueihi, like he touched the ball so much against the Bulldogs and we didn't score a single point, that he's in the halves. That's a big thing on him. Like he doesn't have a mortgage on a jersey. He's not an Origin player. Besides, like I reckon if you give this season and then the end of last season, like so okay, like he's had one like really good consistent first grade season, but now like he's calling like rough shots on the coach, saying that like, no, I want to play in half or nothing. Like, who are you? Like, what have you done to think that you can like, talk to Benji Marshall, Golden Boot winner, Premiership winner, like played for New Zealand, captain New Zealand, like basically is the West Tigers, and then you're leaking stuff to the media about like, oh, I just stood up to him because I'm the one who cares about the West Tigers. This is a line in the sand moment because I just care about the club so much. No, you don't. You just care about what's in your best interest. Which is, it is what it is. But I just hate the fact that like no one's kind of being like, well, you haven't like I think you've played like one finals game for South Sydney at fullback. Like you've never taken a team to the finals, but you're carrying on like you're some sort of like Origin player, and it's so frustrating. And like I just could never imagine. Like I always like to think, okay, like I'm not a professional athlete. I need to put myself in a professional athlete's shoes to see like kind of what they're thinking. But I would never do what he's done to anyone I work with, where it's a tough situation, everyone is struggling, but I've made a decision for me to pull myself out. And as a consequence of that, everyone else is going to suffer. The players are going to suffer because of the media distraction. They got thumped. Now it's going to continue. The fans get the negative publicity, have to watch it, they suffer. Like people who like paid memberships, like actually financially contribute to the club, like he's let them all down, and all what? So he could play halfback. Like it's incredible. Like the amount of like just absolute arrogance from him is outstanding, not outstanding. But and then like I can't imagine another single time this has ever happened in sport where someone's just refused to play. And even with like Robbie Farr, when he had his blow-ups with Jason Taylor, at least with Robbie Farr, you could say like, well, he like won a premiership for the club. Like, he genuinely does care about what's in the best interest of the club. But Adam Doueihi has done none of that. So, yeah.
Yeah, Adam Doueihi, the thing that got me and got a lot of people was the way that he did it, just the walk-off. And, like you're saying, Declan, to front up to the coach. And it's fair enough to have an opinion. Everyone's allowed to have an opinion. And the players, especially the senior players, should be able to sit down and have a conversation with the coach or with the coaching staff about selections. But to then say, even the comment, which I know, Josh, you mentioned that he said before. I think he said it several years ago when he got picked under Brett Kamali, I think it was, to play centre. And he said he didn't want to play centre, rather play in the halves in Cup. To say that, I'd rather not play and put, I don't want to play at all, stand me down, I think it's very poor. And like you're saying, Declan, you're not just letting your playing group down, but all the fans and members. Like there were a bunch of fans. I had a look on the TV at a couple of crowd shots yesterday on the coverage, and there were some familiar faces from the Fanatics, from the old West Tigers Fanatics days, that were sitting down there at GIO. So I feel sorry for those guys that work all week, don't earn a lot of money. I don't think you do, not compared to NRL players anyway. Spend your hard earned to, fill up your car with petrol or hop on a bus, whatever it is, and go down all the way down to Canberra and sit there and watch that performance. And it's one thing to put on the jersey, and I think Josh, you were saying there were some players yesterday you didn't think had a go in the jersey, and Jerome was one of them, and I'll agree with you on that one. But Doueihi didn't even choose to put on a jersey. He threw the jersey back in Benji's face, and he said, "No, I don't want to wear it this week. Pick someone else. We'll go with Javon. Let's see what happens." And for me, as a paying member and a lifelong fan of this club, I find that extremely frustrating and hard to come back from. Like a lot of people have said, how's he going to front up to Benji, not just to Benji on Monday, tomorrow morning, and have that meeting, but if he does decide to stay, how's he going to put back in the training jersey and get back into training, prepare for next week's game against Barra? Like, how does that happen?
Yeah, look, I think that Declan makes a good point. You make some good points. I don't think this is I said I was kind of putting on the Adam hat there, and I don't think he's going to come out of this smelling of roses. I don't think Benji's going to come out of this smelling of roses. I mean, the only thing Adam could do worse is put on an Auckland Blues jersey and announce his signing. Oh, hang on, sorry, that was Benji who did that when he was captain of the Tigers, or vice captain.
But
of the
that's
Tigers.
different. That's so different.
Is it?
It is, yeah. Because he was already leaving. Like the Tigers didn't want him. They made it clear to him that he didn't want his, like he was to move on. Like yes, he shouldn't have put the Auckland Blues jersey on, but he'd already agreed to leave. It was already like being finalised. It was the wrong thing to do. But like to compare that to what Adam Doueihi's done, I think that's just that's apples and oranges.
I don't think it is. I think it's very, like Nick just talked about, as a fan, when you're paying your hard-earned money and watching your star player get up and wear another club's jersey in the middle of your season for a big, exciting announcement with the jersey on is worse than a guy taking a week off because he's not in the mental space to play.
But how much did Benji Marshall give to the Tigers jersey? Like
the first time he was here, or the second time, or the third time, because he left about
all of it.
Times.
Like he gave his entirety. Like he's given. Like if there was, I think we've talked about this on the pod before. If there wasn't Benji Marshall, I don't think there would be a West Tigers. Like if he didn't come in the 05 run, like erase that, and then he was our best player. Like 2010, 2011, all the times we played finals. Like he did leave the club, yes, but then when he came back. Like he came back for pennies. And honestly, if him and Robbie Farr didn't come back in that kind of 2018, 2019 period, I reckon we would have won a lot more wooden spoons because they were on pennies. They were playing really well. And there were guys on bigger wages who weren't contributing at all. So I just think that it's just not the same thing. It's not the same thing at all. And like you can, like, I think it's completely fair to like critique Benji Marshall as the coach because, obviously we agreed at the start of the podcast that we're nowhere near where we want to be. Like that's fair enough. And like, I think that's very valid to kind of ask questions of him as the coach. But I think to compare like what Benji did as a player compared to what Adam's doing now, I think that's just, I don't agree with that.
Is there only one Messiah at the club, at least as a player? And that's Benji. It's not AD. Maybe AD will come back in another decade and be a super coach.
Yeah.
He could be the next Wayne Bennett.
Up for it.
He could be the next Wayne Bennett. We'll have to wait and see for that one. One piece of news, we could talk about Doueihi for all night long, but let's see what happens tomorrow anyway with that meeting with Benji. I'm sure we'll have a lot more to discuss for the midweek.
Well, I'm not sure if it's been dropped. Well, there's been a leak that like he's basically coming to Concord to say that
he's done.
It's done.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was reported by the Daily Telegraph. There was another report that said like they were calling it peace talks, and it kind of looked like it'd been leaked to kind of cool the temperature, but now this looks like, so who knows? So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what piece of metal is true.
And as we mentioned as well, managing company owned by Isaac Moses, you would think that there was something in the works behind the scenes before he went into the office and had that chat to Benji on Thursday, which is obviously against the rules, right? Because he signed earlier this season until the end of 2029. So he's under contract. He's not allowed to talk to anyone else.
Well, and it's interesting, when he signed, Isaac Moses was doing the negotiations with other clubs, but he wasn't. It was kind of made clear at the time that Isaac Moses wasn't his manager. Adam was continuing to manage himself and didn't actually have a manager, but he needed someone to speak to other clubs for him. It was like a short-term arrangement, and he did the Tigers deal with Richo directly on his own. So it's interesting that he's since picked up a full-time manager, if that is the case. It's an interesting change there, I'll admit, and especially the guy who, Benji has him and Isaac obviously have a horrible relationship. It's an interesting part of the scenario.
Well, running the propaganda machine is a full-time job, so maybe I think that's probably why he can see a little bit of value in getting a manager to like win the PR war for his next club. And that's another thing. Like, sorry, Nick, I know you didn't ask this question, but like, if I take my West Tigers hat off, what club is like, please, can we sign you now? Like the Perth Bears, maybe. But other than that, like, what kind of top 8 team is going to bang down the door of Isaac Moses, being like, yes, please, can we please sign you up now? Like Galvin was like a young, first class recruit, so that made sense because like he was going to get signed somewhere. But Adam Doueihi, I think he's like 27, 28, 29, 3 ACLs, and then it comes out this stuff. You know what I mean? Like it's just like he's not like a hot commodity for like another team besides the Bears. So yeah, just the whole thing is perplexing.
And the sad part for me is I've always thought Doueihi would make a good 13. Like he's tall enough, he's quick enough when he's not being, overly dynamic. When he gets going in a straight line, he can certainly run with speed. He's got a really good passing game. If you put him in that lock position with Javon and Latu on either side, he's that experienced head that the halves could benefit from. So if he walks away, and Josh, I hope you're right. I hope he does come in tomorrow and he can work something out with Benji and stays. But if he walks away, it's really ripping out a pivotal part of our team. I think at least that going over the next couple of years. For me, he's not our ideal halfback. I think he's a bit too selfish in the way that he plays, and we've seen that. I know we've been struggling. I know, like we were talking about with Romy yesterday, he made a few poor decisions. Maybe AD's made a few poor decisions recently too, but just the way AD tends to run on his own rather than looking for support, and he's done that for a number of years where he's, if you want to call it hogging the ball a little bit, he tends to play a bit that way. But it would be a real shame if we didn't get to see him as that link in the middle of either of the young halves, Declan.
Yeah, I think that at the start of the year, AD, he was just in that purple patch of form where he'd found that perfect balance between running the ball and passing. And then we were being so dominant in the middle and there was so much space that he was just carving up his opposition half because he's just so much bigger. But then when you take away the ascendancy and the dominance and the fact that he doesn't have, he's not the most creative half, and he's clearly struggling with that shoulder injury still, so his running game's been nullified. It really does kind of show his shortcomings as a creative half, because he's not the kind of guy that's probably gonna create a lot for everyone else when your team's under the pump. And when you look at someone like Andrews, who's his passing seems almost seamless at some points. It's just that shoulder injury. It'd be interesting in a kind of what if he never did his shoulder and he kind of just continued that form, because he might have even played Origin. We might have not had that form dump, but now it's kind of all it is what it is. We are where we're at now. So yeah.
I think the interesting thing is too, and this is we talk a lot about the halves and we talk a lot about the backs often. But our forwards, not just yesterday, but ever since, probably the last 8 weeks, have been losing the battle. That's the difference between early in the season and now. It's not the halves and no halves. You often hear Joey and things talk about no halves play well behind a beaten pack. Well, our pack's getting monstered and beaten every week, and so we can. And we talk about signing. We could sign Nathan Cleary and Cam Munster, and if our pack still gets, you're seeing with Jerome, he was a 4-time premiership winning halfback. You come and play behind the Tigers pack, and you're just not being able to get it done. Obviously, there is levels to that with the quality of the halves, but if your pack can't do the job, and our pack just hasn't been looking like it can do the job. In the middle, maybe the edges. I thought Samuel Afenu was probably the best of our pack, and
Yeah.
not surprisingly yesterday. But in the middle, we've just been like, we're not running with any venom. We're not tackling with any venom. It's all a little bit going through the motions. Like, Terrell May is kind of, maybe he's exhausted, maybe he's run down, maybe he's, internal ructions. He's not having a good. Pole's doing a bit, but was better off the bench. Twal, as Declan said at the start, like, if your pack's not doing the job in the middle and not, the Raiders pack was running harder and tackling harder. And that's probably been the answer for the last 6 weeks, is the opposition pack has not necessarily been better from a talent point of view, but they've run harder and tackled harder than we have. And that's why we're losing games. The rest is just a matter of how much, in the back line. But it's really about, you don't score points when you're losing the battle. And Joel's favorite word are physicality. If you're losing the physicality battle, you don't win games.
Well, the physicality was there the first 8 weeks of the competition, and then it dropped off. As we've said, we've sounded like well, what's the word, an empty balloon, but we've been banging on all year about the injuries and what type of impact that had on our performances, and which is very valid. But even when you think about after that first 8 weeks, we started losing a few more games than what we were winning, got through the Origin period about 50-50. And I remember saying, if we can get to 50-50 at Origin, we're not doing too bad. But then not long after Origin, we played the Knights. And I remember saying, if we don't beat the Knights, we're in big trouble of slipping out. And I could just sense that the boys would start getting a bit down and things would start getting a bit more difficult. And I think that's shown on the scoreboard, which is a real shame. I don't know what we need to do to turn this around for our last 5 games of the year. I know we've got the Eels this coming week and then the bye, and I cannot wait for the bye. Declan, you got any magic up your sleeve or any suggestions?
Well, it's not magic. If you just look at like any tackle in the Cowboys game round 1 and then compare it to like what we're doing now, like, we're not winning the wrestle, we're not putting people on their back, we're not that slow down the ruck, and then like we're not, and it's a flow-on effect, because then because the other team is finishing, like putting the ball in our 10. Bull is not like a yardage fullback, like he's small, and then Tavana follows it up. He's not a yardage winger, and then all of a sudden, it's second, third, and we're in trouble, and our forwards aren't, and they're not in form, they're not making yardage, and then off the back of that, we're not creating anything. So we just need to go back to basics of like winning the ruck. I know it's like simple and it's hard to do. Like, it's easy to explain, but it's hard to do. But it's just those 1%ers that have just completely went out of our game that we just need to get back somehow to end the season. And like, it was incredible because I remember we played the Knights at Campbelltown and the Knights couldn't even get out of their half. We were just so dominant in the ruck and the tackle. And like, there's something to be said about like the price you pay for physicality, because you look at Penrith, how they can be consistently that good for the whole season. But I think we might have learned a lesson where the players were willing to pay the physical price at the start of the season, but aren't really willing to, either they're not willing to, or they're down in confidence, which is impacting it. But that's just what we've got to do. We've got to start winning the collision more. We've got to put them on their back, and we've got to be more disciplined. And that's what we need to do at the end of the year.
Yeah, I mean, I think that physicality, and as Declan was saying, like paying the price. Like, I think that there weren't any great stats from our performance of the weekend, but one I've kind of noticed over the last few weeks is that Doreen Buller each week has had the most post-contact meters. Now, your fullback having the most post-contact meters, I just flicked up and looked to the one in the Cowboys game at the start of the year. He was the 9th most post-contact meters, with about the same post-contact meters as he had on the weekend. And I looked at the Raiders on the weekend. Weeks was about 7th or 8th in the most post-contact meters. Like, that just shows you that the guys aren't running. Like, we're just not getting forward. We're not winning the rucks. We're not winning the run. We're just not putting that effort in. As you said, there's some small outside backs, and that's fine. I mean, the fact that Taruva didn't have a single run in the first half means that he doesn't really count. I'm not sure he even turned up in Canberra, did he? Or he just played from Sydney. So, guys just not having a crack, but really showing out in some of those.
And Paul Taruva, we've spoken about him too. He's a victim of our backline changes over the last few months too, with the injuries. But he's been playing a lot of centre and he needs to be on the wing because he is a specialist finisher and we have not been able to see that lately. So that's no doubt impacted what he can deliver for our club, and we need something different at least for next year, because the rest of this year is a sit down and hope that we can do something, but pretty much a write-off, and then enjoy 4, 5, 6 months off, boys, and then get back into it for 2027. So can't wait. How about we just call it a night and reconvene in February 2027? What do you think?
Yeah.
I mean, it's an option, Nick. I mean, there's an option that we just call it a night as a club and shut it down, because I'm running out of solutions.
Yeah.
Maybe we replace the owners, but that's about the only thing we haven't replaced and still managed to not improve. So yeah,
maybe we can get some of that PNG money on the PNG Chiefs podcast.
Chiefs podcast, Declan. Maybe we should start that. That's not a bad idea. And I did say when the jersey comes out, maybe I'll have a look at that. So interesting to see who else they sign. I saw Lomax was out there touring around the
He signed.
stadium.
It was announced today.
He signed, so it's official.
Announced it. Yep, in half time at one of the games up there. So now,
lovable squad they're assembling. Very lovable by a very lovable GM.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe AD will be signed by Wednesday too. So could be just in time for our midweek podcast.
I can't imagine him and Jerome want to keep playing together, Nick. I'm not sure that's where that's going.
Maybe Jerome will backflip and come back to the Tigers. Actually, he'll probably go back to the Panthers if AD
Eels. Or, he'll start the Eels.
Start Eels, yeah, correct. All right, thanks, boys. It's been good. As always, as Joel always says, West Tigers Podcast Forum, if you want to get online and have your say. Love to see everyone's feedback. I don't get on there often enough, but thank you for all of the people that do post on the website. Also YouTube, like, share, subscribe, all that sort of stuff. And this Facebook page group. Lots of places where you can engage in and talk all things West Tigers, as we love doing with our beloved club. So thank you, boys. It's been good to chat, and hope you have a good week and talk to you midweek.
Thanks, Nick.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Declan.